Okay, picture this scenario. It's that one moment. You know, the one you've been chasing for maybe 6 months? It could be the email that finally lands in your inbox, the promotion, you got it. Or maybe you just crossed the finish line of a marathon and you see a personal best on the clock.
That's the dopamine hit we're all living for, right?
Exactly. The result is locked in. It's real. You did it. And then, the phone starts buzzing. Texts from family, LinkedIn notifications are stacking up.
The clapping emojis, congrats, all of it.
All of it. And it feels incredible. You take that deep breath, you
Yeah.
lean back and you think, I have arrived. This is it.
It's the peak of the mountain. It's what we are basically programmed to chase. It's the payoff.
But here's the twist. And this is where today's deep dive gets a little unnerving. We've been combing through a stack of philosophical notes, specifically looking at success through the lens of Stoicism.
Right.
And the core argument we found is that moment of victory, that exact feeling of I have arrived, is actually the most dangerous point in your entire life.
It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? I mean, we frame success as the safety zone.
The finish line.
Yeah, we think if I can just get there, I'm good, I'm safe. But when you really dig into the writings of Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or Seneca, you realize they weren't just worried about suffering, they were terrified of winning.
Which is so not the brand of Stoicism most people know. Usually when we talk about it, it's about grit.
For sure.
It's enduring the ice bath, carrying the logs, keeping a stiff upper lip when everything falls apart.
That's the Instagram Stoicism version. It's catchy, but it's incomplete. The deeper philosophy, the source code, is really about maintaining your internal structure no matter what the weather is.
And the argument these guys make, Marcus the Emperor, Seneca the Power Broker, is that sunny weather is actually more destructive to the foundation of your house than the storm.
Exactly. So the mission for this deep dive isn't to say that winning is bad.
No, nobody wants to hear that. I don't want to believe that. We want to win.
Of course. Winning is great. The mission is to understand why winning creates the specific psychological state that triggers the erosion of character. It's about that I have arrived fallacy. It's what happens in your brain the second the pressure comes off.
Let's get right into that first mechanism then. The notes call it the softening. It's such a visceral way to put it.
It is, and it's not just a metaphor. The texts argue that victory doesn't destroy you with, a big explosion. It destroys you by loosening your grip. It's a subtle unbuckling of the armor.
There's a phrase from the source material that just stood out to me so much. It was, victory softens you in places where you used to be hard.
Oof. Yeah, think about the hunter mindset. When you're chasing the goal, you are rigid in your discipline. You are waking up at 5 a.m. not because you want to, but because you absolutely have to.
You're paranoid in the most productive way possible.
Exactly. You're hyper alert to mistakes. You question your strategy every single day because you haven't won yet.
You're checking the details 3 times. You're rehearsing the pitch in the shower.
Yeah.
You are hungry.
Correct. But then you win. The pressure lifts. And the source implies that it's not that you suddenly become lazy.
No, you don't turn into a slob overnight.
Not at all. It's more subtle. You just become permissive.
You start cutting the corners that you used to measure with a ruler. You think, I can skip the 5 a.m. wake up today. I just closed the deal. I earned this.
And that I earned this mentality.
Yeah.
That is the crack in the foundation. This gets to a really uncomfortable question about discipline that the Stoics force us to ask.
Which is
your discipline a character trait or is it just a transaction?
Explain that, because I think a lot of us operate on that transaction model without even realizing it.
Well, if I'm disciplined only because I want the gold medal, my discipline is transactional. It's a means to an end. I will suffer this run to buy the medal.
Okay.
Once I have the medal, the transaction is complete. The discipline has no more purpose, so it just evaporates. It was never part of me, it was just a tool I was renting.
Whereas if the discipline is for the sake of, living right or being a certain type of person, the medal shouldn't change anything. The discipline is the product, not the medal.
That is the Stoic ideal. And Marcus Aurelius is the perfect case study here. This guy was the Roman emperor. He had it all. Absolute power. He'd won every lottery you could win.
Right.
He didn't write his journals, what we now call meditations, to cope with being a loser. He wrote them to keep himself from being corrupted by being a winner.
There's a section where he talks about praise, and he treats it almost like a virus.
Yeah.
He saw victory as something familiar, and because of that, it was dangerous. It just lulls you to sleep.
It makes you feel safe when you are actually at your most vulnerable. He knew that victory creates this false sense of safety, and that leads us directly into the second big danger zone the sources identify. the illusion of control.
Okay, this is the part that really made me rethink my own career highs.
Wow.
There's this paradox in how we treat failure versus success. When we fail, we become detectives.
We do a forensic audit, yeah.
Right? Why did I lose? Was my strategy off? Did I not prepare enough? We are obsessed with the why, but when we win, we stop asking questions entirely.
Well, why would you ask questions? The result was good. Your brain is an efficiency machine. So if the outcome is positive, the brain just backfills the logic. The result was good, therefore my process was perfect.
I did this because I'm smart. I did this because I worked hard. My strategy was flawless.
And that might be partially true, but Seneca warns us about the blurring of the lines. In any success, there's this complex cocktail of your effort, your talent, and just plain old luck. Circumstance, timing.
But the human ego hates the luck variable.
Yeah.
We want 100% of the credit.
We claim the credit, and that creates what the sources call the illusion of stability. We start believing our current way of doing things is some universal law. I yelled at my team and then we hit the deadline. Therefore, yelling at the team works.
Oof, yeah. That's the trap. You lock in bad habits because they just happen to coincide with a win.
Huh.
You validate a flawed process because the dice rolled a 6.
That's the danger zone. Once you believe your method is infallible because it worked once, you stop self-auditing. You stop looking for your blind spots. And that is when reality usually comes in with a baseball bat to remind you that you are not a god.
I want to ask you, listening right now, to really reflect on this. Think about the last time you were on a winning streak. Maybe it was sales numbers, a sport, whatever. Did you find yourself preparing just a little less?
Did you check your assumptions less often? It's that feeling of, I've got this, to a Stoic, I've got this, is the beginning of the end. It's not loud arrogance. It's a quiet lowering of your guard. You stop playing defense because you think the war is over.
And in the modern world, this isn't just happening inside our heads. The notes move on to discuss how technology and culture just amplify this, the social amplification of winning.
Yeah, this is where it gets incredibly difficult to manage in the 21st century. I mean, in Marcus Aurelius' time, a victory might have been a big parade, sure, but today, victory is quantified, tracked, and broadcast instantly.
Notifications, rankings, likes, shares. And what's really interesting is that failure is often invisible. We hide our losses. We don't post about the deal that fell through.
But winning.
We blast it out on every channel.
And this transforms the nature of the victory itself. It stops being a personal event, I overcame a challenge, and it becomes a social signal. The internal narrative shifts from I did it to people know I did it.
That's a huge shift. It reminds me of Seneca's analogy about the applause of the crowd. He compares it to wine.
It's an intoxication. Exactly. Seneca argues that if we get used to that applause, we become physiologically dependent on it. We need the wine just to feel normal.
So if you win and nobody likes the post, did you really even win?
Exactly. So the motivation pivots. You stop doing the work because the work itself is valuable or interesting. You start doing it to maintain the signal. You just need to keep the applause going.
You become a slave to the audience. That's the irony, right? Winning makes you stand out. It makes you look powerful, but internally, it creates a dependency. You are no longer self-sufficient.
You're performing for the echo.
Performing for the echo. That is a chilling way to put it. You're not building a house, you're just shouting into a canyon to hear your own voice bounce back.
And the terrifying part, if the echo stops, you feel empty, like you don't exist. That is the trap of audience capture. You lose your autonomy because you need that external validation to verify your own worth.
Which brings us to the deepest layer of this analysis. We've talked about the physical softening, the mental laziness, the social dependency, but the source calls this next part the existential cost. It's about character versus result.
This is where the identity shift happens. When you win, especially when you win repeatedly, you actually change the story you tell about yourself. You go from being a person who is training and learning to, I am a winner.
You graduate from student to master in your own mind.
And that seems positive, right? I mean, we're told to visualize success, to have confidence, but the Stoics under this identity shift comes with a heavy price. You lose the freedom to be wrong.
I see this all the time, the high stakes problem. Once you have a reputation as a winner, the golden child at work, the undefeated champion, admitting you made a mistake feels like a crisis. It feels like you're dismantling your own statue.
Yes. You start playing defense. Instead of taking the risks that got you to the top, trying new things, asking dumb questions, experimenting, you become conservative. You want to protect the image of the winner.
You stop betting because you're afraid to lose your chips.
Yeah.
And so you stop growing, you calcify.
You freeze in place to preserve the image. The Stoic view is that victory is just an event. It's a moment in time. But character is the structure. Events pass like weather. The structure, the house, has to keep standing.
But if you build your identity on the event,
You collapse when the winning stops. Because the weather always changes. Gravity applies to everyone eventually.
okay, to make this really concrete, the notes have two sharp, real-world examples.
Right.
Let's walk through the fitness journey one first because I think it's so relatable.
It's the classic arc of extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation.
So you've got someone getting in shape. The process is grueling. Early mornings, strict diet. And the motivation is internal. It's about discipline, health, feeling better. They're doing it for themselves.
It's intrinsic. They're building the structure.
Then the results hit. The victory. People start noticing, wow, you look great. The compliments flow. And here's the shift. They start posting photos for validation. They start checking the mirror constantly, not for form, but for approval.
And the source notes the danger here. Missing a workout no longer feels like a breach of a personal promise. It feels like a threat to the image. If I miss this, I might lose my form, and then people won't praise me.
So the focus shifts from, am I healthy, to, do I look like a winner? It becomes performative. The gym isn't a training ground anymore, it's a stage.
And that introduces anxiety. The joy of the process is replaced by the fear of losing the status. You're not running towards health anymore, you're running away from your relevance.
The second example, the career high. This one hits close to home for a lot of us.
Think about the person climbing the ladder. In the beginning, they're hungry. They ask for help. They admit they don't know things because they have to learn. They say, I don't know, freely.
Nothing to lose. Then comes the victory, the promotion, the title, the corner office. They are the boss.
And suddenly, disappears from their vocabulary. They feel like they have to justify the title. They defend their viewpoints aggressively, not because they're sure they're right, but because they have to prove they deserve to be there.
They stop learning because they believe they're now the expert. The victory has actually capped their potential.
That's it. They're stuck defending a hill instead of climbing the next mountain. And the source suggests a Stoic audit for these moments. A Stoic looks at that promotion and asks, if no one saw this, if I couldn't put the title on LinkedIn, would I still do the work?
That is the ultimate gut check. If the answer is no, you know you've drifted.
You know you've been seduced by the echo. You're living for the noise, not the signal.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. Winning softens us, it creates illusions, it traps us, but we are not saying don't win.
No, that would be absurd.
We're asking, how do we survive winning? The texts give us 4 specific Stoic strategies.
These are practical mental tools, algorithms for your brain. The first one comes from Epictetus, separate result from identity.
Which sounds basic, but how do you actually do that in the moment?
Well, Epictetus taught the dichotomy of control. We control our choices, not our outcomes. You can do everything right and still lose because of bad luck. And you can do things wrong and win because of good luck.
So if I win, I shouldn't puff out my chest and say I am a god.
Right. A Stoic celebrates the choice, not the result. You tell yourself, I am happy because I prepared well, not I am happy because I won. You anchor your self-worth to the input which you control.
You decouple your ego from the scoreboard. Your self-worth isn't on the field.
Precisely. Strategy number 2 is the echo. This is Marcus Aurelius again.
The visualization technique about praise.
He constantly reminded himself that praise is just noise. It's a vibrating air. It sounds loud, feels real, but has no substance. If you shout into a void, the echo comes back. But you don't live for the echo. You live for the voice that made the sound.
The voice being your character, your actions. The echo is the applause.
And you can't confuse the two. If the echo stops, the voice is still there. If the applause stops, your character remains. Value the source more than the reflection.
Strategy 3 is very actionable. I love this one. Return to basics.
This is the antidote to the softening. The source advises that immediately after a big win, you shouldn't upgrade your ego. You should actually go back to the smallest, most basic disciplines.
The chop wood, carry water mentality.
If you just closed $1 million deal the next morning you shouldn't sleep in, you should probably do the dishes, do the grunt work. You need to remind yourself that you are still the person who does the work.
It grounds you, prevents you from floating away. It reminds you that you still have to take out the trash.
Seneca says we must be vigilant because success makes us believe we are special. Returning to basics reminds us we're just humans doing a job. It punctures the inflation of the ego.
And finally, strategy number 4. The source calls this the what-if test.
This is the contemplation of loss. It's a classic Stoic exercise, premeditatio malorum. But here we apply it to identity. The source asks you to close your eyes and ask, if tomorrow I lost all these results, the money, the fame, the physique, who would I be?
That's terrifying for a lot of people, because for many, the answer is, I would be nobody.
And if that's the answer, then you are in trouble. You've built your house on sand. The Stoic goal is to be able to say, I would still be a person of discipline, curiosity, and integrity.
The victory is something you have, not something you are.
And if you can really distinguish that, you can enjoy the victory without being destroyed by it. You can hold it lightly. You can play the game without being played by the game.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for us, for you listening?
It means we need to reframe our relationship with success. Winning isn't the enemy. The Stoics weren't losers. They were wildly successful people. But they viewed winning as a test.
A stress test for your internal structure.
Failure tests your endurance. And that's the easy test, in a way. You have to endure or quit. Victory tests your integrity. It tests your grounding. It's actually the harder test because it feels good.
Yeah.
It seduces you into dropping your shield.
It softens you.
It softens you. So the challenge is to stay hard in the sense of disciplined and alert, even when the world is throwing flower petals at your feet.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final provocative thought from our sources. It's a question I think we should all sit with, especially the next time we get a win.
The source ends with this contemplation. The question isn't how to win more. It is, when you win, are you still the same person who started the journey?
If the applause stopped and the numbers hit 0, would your discipline remain?
That's the only metric that really matters in the long run.
So enjoy your wins, celebrate them, but keep your hands on the wheel. Don't let the applause drown out your own driver's instinct. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Stay grounded.